Hello, welcome back to SCL. I am joined here today by my good VGC friend and regional champion, Kamikaza.
Hello, that's a quite nice introduction. I'm joined by talking Gastrodon as well.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I look like in real life. This is actually my webcam right now. So we do have a pretty exciting match today, and we are once again going to be covering Terran. We did cast one of his games already, so it's funny to have a repeat. And he's going to be playing against Pengy, another quite famous player at this point.
Yeah, and like one thing to note here is that the Celtics of Torquil already won their wildcard week, so they will be advancing to the next stage, but Pengy and Terran didn't notice. They played quite early in the week, so they still had the pressure on. So even though the outcome for both teams are already decided, the game will be probably just as fun to watch as any other game.
Yes, exactly. They did still have that pressure when they played. It mattered at that point in time. So congratulations to the Celtics for moving on, and we are going to be heading straight into the player previews here. So I will let you take care of introducing Terran.
Yeah, of course. We have Terran again, no one new to the scene. He goes by AuraRayquaza online. Sadly, he doesn't bring the Rayquaza today, but he's bringing 5 other restricteds. He bought this team before in another week against Hobbit VGC from Australia, and he won quite comfortably with 2-0. And yeah, I mean, I can quickly cover his tons of achievements. He got to top 60 at EUIC this year. He got to top 8 at NAIC. He cut Liverpool together with Pengy. He's undefeated in some of those team leagues. So yeah, really accomplished player and always doing his best to win the week.
Yeah, lots of online accomplishments in particular, in addition to those live tournament ones. So as for Pengy, he's a StarCraft player, former Terran VGC player, which is a neat little tidbit, I think. And as you can see, he's been doing really well in VGC as well. He's got 3 notable results at live tournaments just this year, and one of them is being a regional champion, which, you know, is no laughing matter. And on top of that, he is one of the players who popularized the Zach Ogre screen score, which is also the same core that you used to win a regional championship, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I basically copied the team after he did really well at Liverpool with it, and I didn't with my team. So yeah, it's definitely fun to see that. We both managed to win a regional in our respective continents, and yeah, it's now really interesting to see how he adapts with other teams that are probably not as defensive as the AV Kyogre team was, seeing that Tapu Koko Eleki. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that this is a rather interesting team, and one thing that I can say about Pengy is that he tends to like experimenting when it comes to team building. He tends to like making his own teams. I don't know if this particular one was made by him, but it does stand out to me that it is rather more offensive seeming, as you said, and it does have this Tapu Koko as an electric terrain setter to further that damage from the Regieleki, and then at the same time you have Landorus and Groudon, a double ground type there, perhaps to dissuade other electric types, perhaps to dissuade that Zekrom in particular if he's expecting Terran to bring it once more.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the teams in comparison, right, Incineroar looks pretty well into the 4 or maybe 4.5, we don't know about the Tapu Koko or the Regieleki yet. Physical attacker on Pengy's side, so the Incineroar will be really nice with Intimidate. But on the other hand, the Tapu Koko and the Eleki, the electric type, is so strong against Terran because Terran doesn't really have speed control to outspeed Regieleki or even to outspeed Tapu Koko with other things, standardization and Zamazenta. So Zekrom probably has to do a lot of heavy lifting here to bring in this game, and I'd say let's just go into it and have a look.
I have to agree. Let's get into it. That was a nice analysis. I completely agree that the Zekrom is gonna probably play a key role here.
Yeah, it's his only electric resist in the team.
Exactly. It's possible that Pengy tried to go for a bit of a counter team here. It looks like Pengy is going to lead with that Zacian Zamazenta lead, a classic one, while Terran goes with Incineroar Zamazenta.
Yeah, really interesting thing to note here is that the Zamazenta on Pengy's team is not the crowned version.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and that means it's got some other item on it, and I'm curious to see what that item is gonna be. Nevertheless, the Intimidate from the Incineroar goes down on both of Pengy's mons. May or may not end up mattering, we will see. And ooh, yeah. Air Balloon! An Air Balloon on the Incineroar. Actually, we do know that from earlier weeks, but it's still, every time I see it, I'm still kind of like, ooh, that's an Air Balloon Incineroar.
Yeah. We did see the opposing Zamazenta go first with its ability, so I wonder if it's just really, really fast, or if it really is probably a Choice Scarf variant. I think it's really interesting to see that that the Terran opted for such a defensive lead in Incineroar Zamazenta, as they don't really put on too much offensive pressure, right?
Right, there is the option of Dynamaxing the Incineroar, and we saw Terran briefly hover over that button, so it was something he maybe considered for a second, but it looks like it's just gonna be a good old fake out into that protecting Zacian, while the opposing Zamazenta imprisons. Oh, so that's what he's going for here. That is cool.
Yeah, then it's probably just max speed imprison Zamazenta, which is really interesting. And the typing change really helps him here, I think, with the normal Zamazenta form, because it is not carrying the Steel type, still gets the defense boost, so the Incineroar can't really touch it too well, while otherwise it would obviously be just super effective against it. So yeah, I think as weird as it sounds, but it seems to really work out here that the Zamazenta is a normal form. I don't really know how it's called. Is it just Zamazenta not uncrowned? Fallen King?
We can just call it normal form, but yeah, as you said, that works out really well for him, because now Pengy is free to go for that coaching, while Terran's Zamazenta is rather a bit of a sitting duck, as some might call it. And we see that Sacred Sword going into the Incineroar with that +1, giving that Zacian neutral attack, almost KOing the Incineroar, but not quite. The Zamazenta on Terran's side still able to at least go for a damaging move, so that's something it can do, but it's presumably, possibly the only thing it can do at this point. Flare Blitz, actually clicking Flare Blitz, one of Terran's favorite things to do, but oh, it KOs itself with Recoil.
Yeah, and because of this defense boost, the Zacian is able to hang on, get off another attack probably now. But what's really interesting to me is that the opposing Zamazenta seems not to carry the Behemoth Badge. Oh no, actually it can't carry the Behemoth Badge because it's not the crowned form.
Yes, good thing to notice, but you're correct, it can't carry it because it lacks the item. Still, it does have that coaching, and honestly, the fact that Pengy is able to coach his Zacian, but Terran is not able to coach any of his mons, is I think giving Pengy a pretty nice lead advantage here. And we are gonna see a Dynamax from Terran that is almost surely going to be that Zekrom, which is pretty much designed for Dynamaxing, right? With those moves being pretty difficult to use outside of Dynamax. And we're gonna see what move he actually goes for. It could be an Airstream here. Might that be what we're looking at? Okay, coaching from the opposing Zamazenta happens first. Another coaching that is gonna bring that Zacian back to +1 attack. And it's gonna go for a Sacred Sword into the Zamazenta. Oh, it actually KOs.
It wasn't even a crit. That's kind of crazy. I mean, it goes through the protect, but interesting. It's a Cobra Berry Zamazenta.
Okay, I think that kind of confirms to me that Pengy went with a counter team here, and it's working out for him so far, not gonna lie. But we did mention Terran's lack of speed control. Well, Airstream is a kind of speed control, right? So if he can get some Airstreams off, maybe there's still a chance for him, maybe?
Yeah. Speaking of interesting team building skills on Pengy's side, right? Cobra Berry Zamazenta is not something you see very often. It may be the first time that I've seen it, and probably the last one. But
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think Pengy also likes to play in some draft leagues, so he's probably used to coming up with like creative movesets like this, and that probably makes him pretty good at creating counter teams like what we seem to be seeing here.
Yeah, the question now is whether the Zekrom at +1 is faster than the Zacian, and I expect it to be, but another question then becomes is whether the Ogre is faster at +1, because we did see it carrying the AV item, so I don't really know how fast it is, and if it's slower, then Pengy is able to get off a huge attack before going down to the water spout. But yeah, and we do see that the Kyogre's slower, and it just gets clean knocked out by the just normally +1 Zacian basically. So it's either a very aggressive Zacian with very big attack IVs, or the Kyogre is frailer than I thought.
I think it's possible maybe that was like an Diamond max attack Zacian, something along those lines. That would make some sense to me. Either way, we see Pengy go into that Tapu Koko. That is gonna boost the electric type attacks of that Zekrom if it wants to go for them, but at this point it might not matter anymore. This game seems pretty locked up for Pengy unless he's got something remarkably useless in the back, though I don't see how that could possibly be the case.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you want to do now is just stall out the opposing Dynamax, right? Maybe even go for something like a max guard and go for a max fairy type attack next turn to just make it as safe as possible. But yeah, I mean, the good thing about what I like about Terran here is that he didn't give up and attempts to kill the Zacian here to get information on the 4th Pokemon for the next game, right? Even if you lose the game, you still want to go for as much information as possible that you can squeeze out. Revealing the Max Lightning on your side here is not really a big deal, as it's expected to have Max Lightning anyway. And yeah, you can just get more information, especially seeing the Max Airstream here, which seems like then the type of Koko might be physical, right? I think it gets Brave Bird as the only.
It does get Brave Bird, that's right. Yeah, this does mean it's either a full-on physical Koko or a mixed Koko. So Pengy is revealing some stuff here, and again, that, as you said, it's good that Terran doesn't immediately forfeit, despite the fact that this game is pretty lost at this point, because he's still getting information out of Pengy here.
Yeah. I mean, if the Tapu Koko for some reason doesn't carry a fairy type attack, then there might be a way, because we do see the Aleki as the last Pokemon here, as opposed to a Groudon or a Landorus, which would probably instantly seal the deal. Yeah, let's see, it just keeps airstreaming, so maybe there's no fairy type attack, but even then it still looks kind of off. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It could be Pengy signaling that there's no fairy type attack, but it could also be Pengy choosing to not reveal that fairy type attack if it does have one, so we don't know for sure anyway here. Still, that Zekrom might 4 times resist this Aleki's Rising Voltage, but I bet that it's still gonna do a chunk, and yeah, that was like, what, 40% of damage, even 4 times resisted, so Aleki is just a complete monster. And we also saw that Life Orb reveal on it, so more good information for Terran, I suppose.
Yeah, at least that, and even though the electric type attacks weren't the electric type attack weren't the thing that won him the game here in the end, but they still offered a lot of pressure against all the other Pokemon, which Pengy was just able to knock out beforehand, right? So I think it will be really hard for Terran to adapt now, because Zekrom is so important against the electric types attack, but he can't really handle the Zacian Zamazenta combination, I think. He really has to come up with something clever here.
Yeah, and the other thing Terran has to watch out for is that Pengy might switch things up, right? Maybe Pengy is gonna assume that, okay, Terran is gonna try to counter lead my Zacian Zamazenta lead, so maybe I mix it up and I bring Koko Aleki in the lead. Something like that could happen as well, right? So this is a very tricky spot for Terran to be in.
Totally.
But I think we're about ready to jump into game 2, so let's go ahead.
Let's see how the both players adapted. both players got a lot of information. I think crucial is that the +1 Kyogre is not able to outspeed a Zacian, that the Tapu Koko has max airstream as probably a physical variant, and we do see Pengy going for the double electric lead like you mentioned here.
Yeah, it looks like Pengy is adjusting, and so is Terran, but ouch, that Kyogre is super threatened by the double electric lead on Pengy's side, so this is looking rather rough. We see the Drizzle come out, and we're also gonna see that Incineroar's Intimidate, which might matter since, you know, that is a physical Koko after all.
What's really funny to me is that the Pokemon shown there is a Zacian Crowned, while it's not actually the Zacian Crowned, just because every Zacian, Zamazenta, I mean, every Zacian and every Zamazenta are the Crowned version, but...
Did you notice the Koko item?
No, was it White Herb?
It was White Herb.
Oh, I see.
Oh my goodness, but yeah, you're right about the Zamazenta form. So what do you think Terran can do here?
Yeah, I mean, you have to bring in Zekrom somehow. Maybe you have to call which Pokemon on the opposing end Dynamaxes, so you get the Fake Out on the correct spot. Yeah, Kyogre kinda has to swap out, but you still want to be quite healthy with your Zekrom, so you maybe just sack the Kyogre here, and it seems like that's what Terran's going to do here.
Yeah, so Terran, I think, went for a fake out play onto that Alecki, perhaps hoping that it wouldn't max, but it looks like there's a max coming out, but it is from the Koko. It's from the Kokos. So, more likely than not, I would expect the Koko to just KO the Kyogre here, because it does look like Pengy has all the info he needs on Terran's team. He should know that this is an Assaultless Kyogre that cannot protect. But, oh, that's a Rising Voltage, and actually no fake out coming out. I misjudged that particular bit. The Rising Voltage still enough to OHKO that Kyogre with both the Electric Terrain setup and that Life Orb on the Alecki, despite the Assault Vest. Max Lightning coming out from the Koko. Is it enough? It is not enough. Despite the White Herb, the Incineroar tasted like a champ, gets that parting shot off. The Alecki is at least somewhat neutered, and now maybe Terran will be able to do something about this really scary lead.
Yeah, at least Terran gets his Zekrom in now. I think that's really important to get his Zekrom in now, and while also keeping it healthy, like it's max HP here. He will get in the Incineroar again here, at least finally get an attack drop on the Tapu Koko. Actually no, it seems like he brought the Zacian, maybe going for something like Protect, Max Airstream to make it faster than the rest, but as we know, the Tapu Koko can also Max Airstream, right?
Yeah, and it seems like, well, to be fair, for the moment at least, the Zacian should be outspeeding the Koko, right? So that is something, but on the other hand, the Alecki outspeeds and probably one-shots the... Oh, it doesn't one-shot the Zacian because of the parting shot, so actually there's some stuff Terran could do here.
Yeah, it depends on whether the Regieleki carries the Electro Web, which most of the Regielekis do. Yeah, at least for now the Zekrom is in a good spot here, because it can't really be touched by both the opposing Pokemon. It still is really hard for him to break the Tapu Koko, as the Zekrom only carries electric and flying moves to even hit it well, because it's immune to dragon moves, obviously.
It's looking like it's gonna be rough for Terran to go after that Koko with the Zekrom here. But let's see what happens. We see a Rising Voltage and the Zacian should be able to live. It does indeed live. And now if this is a Behemoth Blade into the Koko, I wonder how well it takes that, if it takes that at all. Most Koko are not overly bulky, so let's see. Is this a KO? It is! It does KO. So that double damage against Dynamax Mons part of Behemoth Blade really coming in clutch for Terran here. And now we see a max airstream go into that Alecki. It should probably still live. It does live, but with just a sliver of health. So after 2 more Life Orb takes, that Alecki is probably gonna go down. So that's something Pengy has to be thinking about now here too.
Yeah, I mean the situation is still not. It's still tough for Terran here, but for me it feels like Pengy should have just clicked the Electro Web button, right? Maybe he forgot about the special attack drop, or maybe he thought that it still does KO it. I don't know, but for me it feels really hard.
Or he just doesn't have Electro Web. Maybe this is just like a pure offense Alecki.
That might be the case, after all. Yeah, and I think for now, for now, Terran has to just try to get the most out of his Dynamax while keeping the Zacian at a faster speed than Eliki. So you go for another Max Airstream, or you protect the Zacian here to not get hit by the Electro Web. Because even if it doesn't carry it, you still have to acknowledge the fact that it could, right? And there it is.
It does have it. Okay. So it's not an Electro Web less Eleki. I think you're correct in saying that perhaps it would have been better for Pengy to go for that last turn.
Yeah,
So we see that. Yeah, sorry.
No, I just want to say that just, of course, easier said in hindsight than from the player perspective, right?
Yeah.
We probably had maybe a read in mind or something like that. We can't tell.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we did see that Earthquake come out from the Landorus. Pengy was willing to sacrifice his Eleki to get some damage off onto the Zekrom. The Zekrom goes for Airstream, as you mentioned, making sure that the Zacian is gonna outspeed, well, anything Pengy could have in the back, really, while also putting that Landorus in Behemoth Blade range, which could be important since well, the Zacian is -1, right? So it needs that little bit of support, that little bit of chip damage to ensure that it actually can get a KO.
Yeah, the endgame now is kind of tough because it might come down to calling some protects correctly, like calling if the Zacian protects now, if you can just kill the Landorus freely. But I think Terran has the edge here because both of his Pokemon are faster now.
And there is also that electric terrain which is going to be boosting the damage from this Zekrom. So perhaps it's enough with the Life Orb to KO the Zacian, but we just see a protect from the Zacian, so we're not going to see a KO regardless here, and a Behemoth Blade from Terran Zacian is going to go into that Landorus, surely picking up the KO. Interesting to note that the Landorus did not protect, so we could maybe consider, what if this Landorus has a Choice Scarf or something. It's not entirely impossible. And let's take a look at this lightning damage. Ooh, okay, so that's around 20%, so the Zacian probably would have survived, but barely if it didn't protect.
Yeah, it would have done a lot of damage, so I think Terran had this game locked up last turn if he just double targets both slots basically. And now he can just go for a Bolt Strike and a Behemoth Blade. He's faster than his opposing Pokemon. He still even has the Incineroar in the back, which might be able to just get the last bit if Pengy somehow manages to survive there. So awesome comeback from Terran. I think it looked really rough from turn 1 on, like instantly losing the Kyogre, right? Getting a ton of damage into the Incineroar, but Pengy kind of was stuck with his 2 electric-type Pokemon against the Zekrom there, and Terran made the best out of it and came out on top.
Yeah, I totally agree that turn 1, like that lead matchup looked so rough for Terran, but then he managed to turn it around. And, it's not just the lead matchup, it's the team matchup in general. It seems so difficult for him, but he did it. He figured out the win con there. And as you said, it was just, to me, I think it's a difficult play to make, to decide to stay in with that Kyogre turn 1 and just sacrifice it to that Eleki, but it was the correct play, right? Because you can't really be taking damage on your Zekrom.
Yeah, I mean, it always feels really rough to just give up a Pokemon turn 1, where it actually doesn't do anything. But if you really want to win those tough matchups, you have to be able to see when to sacrifice a Pokemon. When you lead, okay, I messed up this lead. He got me on the lead. I have to kind of take a step back now, lose a Pokemon, and maybe win 3 or 4 with the other Pokemon. And that's what's happened. That's what happens, and it's nice to see that Terran didn't give up and just tried his best and came out on top.
Yeah, very cool adaptations from both players, and I'm curious to see what Game 3 is gonna look like. So without further ado, let's head into that. Oh, it looks like the screen went black. Oh, here we are. Pengy is gonna stick to that Tapu Koko Eleki lead that he went with in Game 2, whereas Terran goes back to the Zacian Incineroar lead. So this lead is not quite as rough for Terran, perhaps, but still a bit scary that Eleki is threatening the KO onto Zacian regardless, right? So this is perhaps coming down to reads.
Yeah, this is tough now. Of course, we did see the Zacian outspeeding the Tapu Koko before and just clean one-shotting it with a Behemoth Blade. But on the other hand, now that there's this elite combination on the field, you can probably just make an argument for Dynamaxing the Reggie Eleki here, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have to agree. Like, maxing Eleki seems like a great way to get around a potential fake out, and from there you can just start picking up KOs onto everything that isn't Zekrom, right? But the Zekrom isn't that scary to the Eleki. So, yeah, very curious to see how Terran plays around it.
Yeah, the Reggie Eleki definitely is scary because I do think it might be able to just get a KO on either of those two Pokemon, and neither Zacian nor Incineroar offer a lot of speed control here, or offer speed control at all, which kind of says that Reggie Eleki is at least the fastest Pokemon on the field for 2 turns in a row.
And well, like we expected, it does seem to be an Eleki Max coming out from Pengy here. He did also switch on the Landorus to neuter the damage from that Zacian and probably take a Behemoth Blade comfortably. Not more than one though, just one, but you know, at least it lives, unlike the Koko. Max Lightning is actually going into the Incineroar, which means that Zacian on Terran's side is gonna get an attack off, and if I recall correctly, I think he actually targeted the Eleki rather than the Koko, so let's see if that was correct. Behemoth Blade coming out here. Which slot is it onto? It looks like it's onto the Eleki. So this is gonna do a chunk of damage, obviously not quite enough to KO, but you know, that is still very good damage. And ooh, I'm curious if the Yveltal has Sucker Punch, because if it does, that could be a way out here. It does have Sucker Punch, interesting.
Do you think Sucker Punch kills on this range? I'm not quite sure on the physical Yveltal calcs here. It might be able to actually, because Yveltal with the help of the Dog Hour obviously has a really strong Sucker Punch. Maybe even the strongest in the game. So yeah, we will see if it is able to kill it. I was worried for a second that he didn't bring the
Zekrom, right?
Yeah, but I think now that I think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? If you just think about it as okay, I can get a Behemoth Blade and then I am able to pick up. Oh, it's a critical hit. I'm not sure if it matters. The more I think about it,
I'm not sure either.
It really didn't.
I think it doesn't. I have to agree, because that is a Life Orb Eleki, so it probably doesn't have any, you know, defensive investment at all. And that Sucker Punch, that is like a fully physical Yveltal there, right? So my guess is it probably didn't matter. But you'd have to calc to know for sure. We see the U-turn from the Landorus going back to Pengy, and what do you think he does here? Cycle Intimidate, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Sucker Punch may suggest that the Yveltal is physical as well. So getting another Intimidator is really strong here. You can't bring in your Zacian here exactly, so yeah, the Yveltal is at -1 now. Zacian is really strong, obviously, even against those two opposing Pokemon, but actually he's going for the Tapu Koko here. Another thing to keep in mind is that Terran still has his Dynamax, right?
He does still have the Dynamax, but it's gonna be rough maxing that Yveltal or that Kyogre with the Koko still in the field. Admittedly, the Koko can't max anymore, but like a Wild Charge in Electric Terrain, and with Terran not having his Incineroar left to, you know, reduce the attack stat of that Koko, is gonna do a lot of damage still. So, curious to see what he ends up maxing. Perhaps it will be that Kyogre in the back. Maybe Terran's gonna try to stall out this Electric Terrain, try to win that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you somehow manage that your Kyogre is faster than Tapu Koko, or that, yeah, you, as you said, get off the Electric Terrain, but no, we don't. We actually just see the player of just taking out the, what's it called, the Yveltal, which I think went with a Tailwind, so...
Yeah, it did have that Tailwind, and we mentioned earlier that Terran's team seemed to not have much in the way of speed control, but actually he does have that Yveltal for that. And ooh, that is That is tough.
Yeah, I think it's really big that the Tapu Koko is able to hang on here, because now we saw that Pengy Station is faster than Terran, so he can just probably target the Zacian with a Behemoth Blade, and Tapu Koko is able to go for a wild shot into the Kyogre, which maybe doesn't pick it up, but it will take a huge chunk of damage here.
Yeah, but at the same time, this isn't like completely locked yet, right? Because Zacian on Terran's side can also just protect. While Terran, yeah, it looks like he's gonna be maxing that Kyogre and going straight for that Max Geyser onto Pengy's Zacian, which presumably KOs. I mean, this is a Kyogre after all.
Yeah, and it might come down to the read here if Pengy is doubling the Kyogre, because I think a Wild Charge in Electric Drain is not enough to kill a bulky Kyogre like that in the Dynamax form. So, but if Zacian is not targeting the Terran's Zacian, then his Zacian can attack and kill the Tapu Koko, right? So I think it comes down to whether Pengy calls it or not.
Yeah, exactly. It seems to be coming down to this read. So let's see which player got it right. I really think this is such a tense situation because this could still go either way.
Tapu Koko hanging on with just a sliver of health. We do see Behemoth Blade, and did it go into the Kyogre?
This is into Kyogre, isn't it?
Oh,
yes, it is.
Yes.
Pengy
And I
calls
don't think Terran protected with his Zacian, so he's probably just targeting the Tapu Koko now, which he does.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. That is so tense. So, Pengy losing out on this read. Terran just, going for the brave play, not protecting his Zacian, just KOing that Koko to ensure that his Kyogre lives and gets this huge geyser off. And does this KO the Zacian? It does! Oh my god, what a hype match, actually.
Did Terran just pull this back?
Wow, that is really impressive, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of crazy. He was probably hoping that the Tapu Koko is just knocking itself out of the wild shots there, and he still kept his cool after it survived on, I don't know, maybe 1, 2, or 3 HP, right? So yeah, and from now on it's just press Behemoth Blade and win the game, which is absolutely insane because, yeah, as we said, he didn't really have too much against the double electric, but the few resources he had, he just managed to use perfectly.
Yeah, that was so well played by both players, but Terran comes out on edge by getting those reads right, and it's so cool to see someone win on something like that, right? Because oftentimes VGC comes down to these psychological mind games, and yeah, it's just cool to see them play out this way.
Yeah, was a crazy game, and even if the Celtics of Torkoal are sadly knocked out now. No,
Celtics won, right?
No,
am I wrong?
The Banana Dream Eaters. No, not the Dream Eaters. Oh no, it is the Dream Eaters. Sorry. Yeah, they won. So Terran is out, but he actually showed that he's able to take his team to winning positions. But sadly, it's a team league after all, so you can't win. I'm lost. Okay.
Okay, so actually Celtics are still in. Celtics did win.
Yeah,
so...
okay. No, totally my bad then. Sorry.
No worries. So even though ultimately they won 5-2, which meant that they would have advanced even if Terran had lost. This was, as you said earlier in the week, so at that point in time was a pretty clutch win and probably helped the team morale, right? So
yes, it's always this momentum that you're carrying. If you are ahead 1-0 in your team, then the other players are feeling a little less pressure and may be able to concentrate better because they are not as pressurized.
Right. So again, I just have to mention once more that it was really well played by both players, and if Pengy's team, this is a counter team, as I suspect it might be, then it's a very cool choice of team as well, right? I have to give him props for that.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out about the teams is that the Celtics of Tokyo were probably the underdogs here, right? They only had one win in the regular season. They had 4 ties and 2 losses, so really, I would say, average season because of those many ties, while the Lunana Dream Eaters had 4 wins, only 1 tie and 2 losses, so they had a way better score. But This doesn't matter in the playoffs at all. Celtics of Torquay coming out on top and advancing to the next week.
Yeah, we love a good underdog story, right? Fantastic match. So we're gonna be throwing back to Izzy and Evan straight away, I think. Thank you for letting us cast. See you.
Yeah. See you.